1 minute ago, a royal decree sent shockwaves through Windsor walls and beyond. Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, has been officially banned from using the royal crest on her business cards. But what triggered this sudden royal rebuke? Is this merely a branding issue or a coded exile cloaked in official language? The timing is brutal, the silence from the palace is deafening, and the symbolism, devastating. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The envelope arrived with all the formality of a royal edict, stamped, sealed, and chillingly final. Sarah Ferguson, once embraced, then discarded, then halfway welcomed back into the royal fold, opened it expecting routine correspondence. Instead, she found what insiders are calling a branding strike of unprecedented aggression. A formal letter, written in the most sterile legalese, stripped her of the right to use the royal crest on her personal business cards and commercial materials. To the public, this might appear as a bureaucratic technicality, but within royal circles, the crest is far more than a symbol. It's a statement of power, legacy, and sanctioned belonging. To use it without favor is to commit a silent betrayal. To have it revoked is to be exiled without a word. For months, Sarah had been building something new, something hers. A fresh venture in holistic wellness and women's empowerment. Her brand was designed to blend royalty with relatability. It was marketed with grace, laced with nobility, and yes, adorned subtly with the royal crest. Just a hint, just enough. Enough to reassure investors, enough to tell the world she still had the monarchy's ghostly backing. But behind palace walls, the move wasn't just noticed. It was catalogued. And then came the silence. No conversation, no warning, just a brutal order from above, delivered like a guillotine in a velvet glove. Sources close to Ferguson say she was blindsided. The Duchess, whose decades of public redemption have often walked a tightrope between affection and alienation, reportedly burst into tears upon reading the letter. Her team, mid-negotiation with international partners, scrambled. Calls were made. Contracts were paused. Questions mounted. How could the crest be used for decades on published books, charity endorsements, and even commemorative merchandise only to be banned now? What changed? Or rather, who changed? Whispers echo through the marble corridors of the palace. Some say the directive came from a senior royal who has long harbored discomfort with Sarah's re-emergence. Others believe it was orchestrated by the firm's increasingly aggressive public image team, who view any unregulated branding as a threat to the Crown's tightening control. One royal aide, speaking under condition of anonymity, stated simply, "This came from the top. That's all you need to know." But even in a monarchy accustomed to secrets, this decision feels different, deliberate, theatrical, and deeply personal. The royal crest has long served as a symbol not just of lineage, but of approval. It is offered to those within the trusted walls of the monarchy and revoked from those whose presence becomes inconvenient. To lose it is to lose more than design it, is to lose face, to lose status, to be publicly reminded that you are no longer one of them. And for Sarah Ferguson, who has spent years carefully navigating the edges of that inclusion, this ban doesn't just sting, it strikes at the very heart of her identity. But this royal ban was more than just about ink on paper, it was a signal, and what it implied would shake the foundation of everything Sarah thought was secure. Beneath the regal silence lies an ancient code, one Elizabeth II guarded with iron precision. The use of the royal crest wasn't just a privilege, it was a trust, a crown-embedded covenant, and though Her Majesty never spoke the rule aloud, everyone knew. Break it, and you're out. So why now? Why Sarah? The late Queen Elizabeth had her own quiet way of ruling. She did not thunder, she did not punish publicly. But behind her stillness was a system as sharp as any sword, and at the center of it stood the royal crest, a sacred emblem that wasn't merely ink and embroidery. It was an unspoken contract. Reserved only for those who upheld the dignity of the crown, it symbolized discipline, discretion, and devotion. Throughout her reign, The Queen remained famously protective of royal symbols being used in commercial pursuits, especially by those no longer in active service of the monarchy. Those who crossed that line were rarely given a second chance. Sarah Ferguson had known this, and yet she tried again. It wasn't the first time Fergie stepped too close to the royal flame and got burned. After her divorce from Prince Andrew in 1996, she was gently but firmly warned to tread lightly. A whisper, not a threat delivered by a senior aide under orders from the top. She had already caused discomfort with her post-divorce ventures, appearing in endorsements, reality television, and memoirs that skimmed dangerously close to palace boundaries. At the time, Elizabeth held back the iron hand, but made her stance clear. The royal name was not a platform for personal gain. Sarah, though bruised, appeared to comply. At least for a while. But time passed, and power shifted. The Queen's once absolute hold on royal image began to fade with age, and with it came a vacuum, one that newer, more calculating voices would fill. Camilla, the once reviled outsider who had now become Queen Consort, brought with her a fierce need to uphold not just the monarchy, but her place within it. Insiders suggest it was Camilla who revived the question of Crest misuse during a closed-door discussion on brand integrity. With decades spent climbing the ranks under intense scrutiny, Camilla knew the power of image. She was not about to allow Sarah to casually intertwine the royal past with a commercial present. At the same time, a newer royal power block was solidifying. William and Catherine, the image of a modern monarchy, had begun streamlining what they saw as outdated or dangerous associations. With their popularity towering over other family members, their influence over palace decisions had grown immensely. Their communications team had been quietly advocating for a cleaner image policy, one that distanced the core brand from anyone with a controversial or inconsistent legacy. Sarah, with her unpredictable charm and history of tabloid disasters, was a liability they no longer wished to accommodate. As this internal shift gathered speed, pressure mounted to draw clear lines between the inner sanctum of the monarchy and those orbiting it without purpose. The crest was the clearest weapon in that battle. Denying Sarah the right to use it wasn't just an act of policy, it was a declaration of exclusion, a move to mark her as former, not family. A move to send a signal, not just to her, but to anyone thinking of trading royal shadows for commercial light. And yet, despite all the strategic motives and political pressures, the question lingered like a storm on the horizon. Who made the final call? Because one thing was certain, this wasn't a coincidence. This was calculated, precise. And as the internal politics boiled over, one question remained: who pushed the final button, and why unleash it now, with such precision? This wasn't a random act of royal housekeeping. Sources say this was a power move, premeditated, targeted, and chillingly personal. Fingers point in multiple directions, but behind the velvet curtains of Clarence House and Kensington Palace, one name keeps surfacing, and it's not King Charles. For weeks now, royal watchers have speculated that King Charles, facing mounting health concerns and a barrage of internal crises, was simply too distracted to personally authorize the blow dealt to Sarah Ferguson. The emotional toll of recent public appearances, combined with increasingly visible fatigue, suggests a monarch more preoccupied with preserving stability than engineering punishments. According to insiders, Charles was informed of the decision, but not involved in its orchestration. In other words, the strike was carried out in his name, but not by his hand. Which raises the real question. Who pulled the strings? Some believe the first whispers began with Princess Anne. A loyal stalwart of tradition, Anne has long been credited with being the conscience of the monarchy, uncompromising, unbending, and unafraid to speak hard truths. A senior aide revealed that Anne allegedly voiced concern about the growing looseness of royal branding during a private meeting weeks before the ban. Her exact words, the aide claims, were sharp and unmistakable. "It's time we tighten the brand." While she may not have signed the final order, her words may have served as the catalyst that set the machinery in motion. But the real architect, according to multiple whispers within the palace, may be far younger and far more strategic: Prince William, quietly building his legacy as a future king, has shown increasing willingness to wield influence behind closed doors. Unlike his father, William plays the long game, preferring precision over noise. His close relationship with palace advisors and his growing control over royal communications has put him in a powerful position. To protect the monarchy's future, William is said to have supported a rebrand that draws a hard line between the active royals and the peripheral players. And Sarah, with her unpredictable media history, was firmly in the latter. Then there's Camilla. While publicly composed, her discomfort with Sarah Ferguson has been known for years. The Duchess of York's frequent interviews, media-friendly persona, and unapologetic charm represent everything Camilla worked to distance herself from during her own years in exile. Now secure in her role as Queen Consort, Camilla reportedly made it clear she no longer wished to see the past muddling the present. While she may not have directly issued the ban, her silent consent was unmistakably felt. And yet, the most alarming revelation comes from a source within Catherine's advisory circle. A leaked internal memo classified as moderate sensitivity surfaced last month, outlining instances of unofficial branding misuse involving Sarah's ventures. The document, marked for internal review, was never meant to leave the palace walls, but it did. And it points directly to a joint task force under William and Catherine's media office, hinting at their involvement not just in monitoring, but possibly initiating the process. The timeline reveals that this decision was not spontaneous. It was plotted, debated, and deliberately delayed. Everything hinged on one triggering moment. A controversial interview in which Sarah subtly alluded to still carrying royal blood through her daughters, and mentioned using symbols of heritage in her brand to honor her past. That single quote, though seemingly innocent, lit a fuse that had been quietly waiting. Within weeks, the order was issued, but while the inner circle tightened the noose, Sarah Ferguson was unknowingly setting herself up for the ultimate royal retaliation. They thought she would fade into the background. Instead, she staged a comeback. Books, interviews, charity tours, and now a personal brand with royal undertones. But behind the glowing smiles and poised photo ops, Sarah was playing a risky game, one she believed she could control until she lost. Long before the royal ban exploded into headlines, Sarah Ferguson had been quietly weaving a web of reinvention. No longer content with merely being the Duchess of York in exile, she had begun a methodical ascent from the ashes of scandal, reconstructing her public identity brick by branded brick. The Duchess wasn't just writing memoirs anymore, she was building a business. Behind the scenes, she was negotiating licensing deals, exploring partnerships, and even expanding her digital platform under the delicate moniker York Royal. It wasn't overt, but it was strategic, and more than anything, it was daring. The choice of name alone was provocative. York Royal wasn't just nostalgic, it was suggestive. It echoed with monarchy. It implied continuity. And while Sarah never explicitly used the royal crest in her initial rollouts, her designs bore flourishes, fonts, and heraldic hints unmistakably reminiscent of the House of Windsor. A conscious nod, perhaps, to a history she couldn't legally claim, but emotionally refused to relinquish. Then came the podcast appearance that sparked quiet alarm. In a casual conversation that was anything but, Sarah confidently stated, "I've always been part of the firm, no matter what." It was a line delivered with charm, but for those behind palace walls, it sounded like a veiled challenge. The firm doesn't forget, and more importantly, it doesn't forgive easily. That comment triggered a flurry of calls between senior advisors. Something, they decided, needed to be done. Not later. Now. But Sarah was not slowing down. In fact, her next public move added fuel to the fire. A photo surfaced of her posing with Beatrice and Eugenie at a private charity event. Behind them, a banner embroidered with a modified crest, one so similar to the original that royal watchers began speculating almost immediately. Was it coincidence, or was it an intentional provocation? Regardless, it crossed a line. And the palace noticed. Her own advisors had tried to stop it. In private meetings, her communications director reportedly begged her to scale back the royal references. The advice was blunt. They're watching you. Don't give them a reason. But Sarah, perhaps buoyed by growing media support and personal momentum, ignored the warnings. She believed her legacy, her pain, her resilience gave her the right to reclaim the crown in her own way. After all, she wasn't trying to be queen, just respected, recognized, heard. And when the Crest ban finally arrived, when the letter was delivered and the walls began closing in, her reaction was not denial but defiance. To her closest confidants, she uttered a line now reverberating across media circles. "They can take the Crest, but they can't take my voice." It wasn't a cry for help. It was a declaration, a battle line drawn with ink and indignation. But the royals didn't just want her silenced, they wanted her erased from the brand entirely. And the next step was even more ruthless. Caught in the crossfire are Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice, royal blood by birth, daughters by loyalty. The ban on their mother left them facing an impossible choice: protect their public image within the firm, or stand with the woman who raised them in exile. In a family where silence is often mistaken for strength, Eugenie and Beatrice found themselves voiceless in a storm that struck directly at their mother's dignity. From childhood, they had watched Sarah Ferguson endure public humiliation and private heartbreak with a resilience few could replicate. But this was different. This was calculated erasure not just of Sarah's image, but of the subtle threads that still tied her to the monarchy. As the news of the Crest ban rippled through the press, what followed wasn't just outrage, it was a quiet unraveling inside the royal circle. The sisters were no longer fringe royals, they were collateral damage. Messages exchanged between the two, now leaked by a trusted aide, revealed the emotional weight they carried behind their poised appearances. "She doesn't deserve this. Not again." Read one heartbreaking text. It wasn't just anger, it was exhaustion. They had fought, begged, and waited for decades to see their mother accepted, only to find her cast out once more. But speaking up came at a cost neither had anticipated. Within days, reports surfaced of a tense exchange between Beatrice and Queen Camilla at a private palace luncheon. The confrontation, though discreet, left shockwaves in its wake. Beatrice had allegedly questioned the harshness of the decision, only to be met with a cold reminder that royalty is earned, not reclaimed. That single line, delivered with precision, fractured any remaining illusion that Sarah's past would ever be forgiven. And with that fracture came consequences. When Prince William organised a major royal event centred on youth empowerment, a cause close to Beatrice's heart, both sisters were notably absent from the guest list. No public explanation was given, but sources confirm it was not an oversight. It was a statement. A line had been drawn. The message was clear: your mother has crossed us, and silence is the only path back in. Even charitable engagements weren't spared. Beatrice's scheduled speech at a high-profile gala was suddenly cancelled just hours before she was to take the stage. The official reason cited scheduling conflicts, but insiders confirmed the real cause: unease among senior royals over Beatrice's proximity to her mother's defiant campaign. And yet, through it all, Sarah had one message for her daughters: don't fight this battle. Stay out of it, she reportedly told them in tears. I won't let them use you to hurt me. Still, the emotional toll was undeniable. Two women born into royalty, now torn between their bloodline and their bond. They had inherited titles, expectations, and the weight of tradition. But what they wanted most was justice for the woman who had stood by them through scandal, scrutiny, and silence. A mother, once invited in, now exiled again. And though they obeyed her plea to remain quiet, their loyalty never faltered. But the royal family underestimated Sarah's resilience and the unexpected ally who was about to step into the shadows. No one expected it, least of all the palace. But when Prince Andrew broke his silence with a cryptic comment defending Sarah, it sent alarm bells echoing through Windsor. Was this a desperate act of loyalty, or the beginning of a deeper fracture within the House of Windsor. The moment came unexpectedly during what was meant to be a benign conversation. A brief interview, arranged to quietly rehabilitate Andrew's public image, suddenly took a sharp turn. When asked about the royal family's latest internal tensions, he paused. Then, with unblinking intent, he delivered a line that sent shockwaves through royal watchers and palace insiders alike. "Say what you will, she's never disrespected the crown." A sentence so loaded, so pointed, it required no clarification. It was a declaration and a warning. For a man once silenced by scandal, the timing was too deliberate to ignore. The palace went into immediate containment mode. Behind closed doors, an internal memo was swiftly drafted and circulated to senior staff. Marked "Urgent Reputation Response." The document outlined several strategies to soften Andrew's remark and divert attention. But the damage was already done. By defending Sarah publicly, Andrew had done more than stir controversy. He had reopened wounds the palace had spent years trying to close. The press pounced, headlines erupted, and within hours, news cycles were dominated by two names the firm had worked hard to distance from the monarchy's core: Sarah and Andrew. King Charles, already grappling with rising tensions in the family, was reportedly livid. For months, he had methodically orchestrated the removal of Andrew from public life, strategically withdrawing patronages and titles in hopes of safeguarding the institution. Now, that carefully managed exile had been shattered by a single sentence. Tensions between the brothers, never far from the surface, ignited once more. According to sources close to the palace, Charles confronted Andrew in a private call described as icy and final. There would be no room for sentiment, no tolerance for rebellion, not even for blood. The fallout didn't stop there. Princess Anne, the monarchy's quiet enforcer, was said to be furious. Known for her unflinching adherence to duty and image, she viewed Andrew's comment as a reckless intrusion into matters of public perception, an area she fiercely protects. "He's not in a position to speak for any of us," she reportedly snapped to an aide. The remark wasn't just about Sarah, it was about power, defiance, and undermining the palace's tightly choreographed narrative. But perhaps the most telling clue of all came days earlier. Andrew and Sarah had been spotted having lunch together at a private estate, no press, no formal agenda. The meal, according to those familiar, lasted nearly 3 hours. Whatever was discussed remains behind closed doors, but what followed has left the palace scrambling. Was this part of a plan? Was Andrew's comment an impulsive stand, or a coordinated retaliation against a family that turned its back on them both? Public reaction was as divided as it was intense. Some praised Andrew's rare show of loyalty, calling it redemptive. Others saw it as yet another reminder of why he was removed in the first place. But one thing was certain: the media frenzy reignited scrutiny not just of Andrew's past, but of his present influence. The palace's grip on the narrative was slipping, and the shadows were growing darker. But even as the palace tried to contain the narrative, something else was brewing, an older secret, long buried, now at risk of exposure. Buried within royal archives lies a sealed document, one that, if released, could flip the Crest scandal on its head. A forgotten correspondence between the late Queen and Sarah, never meant for public eyes. But someone has it. And they're no longer staying silent. The whispers began in corners of the palace, where only ghosts tread. A former staffer, long dismissed and previously silenced by non-disclosure, began hinting at a letter typed, signed, and quietly filed away in 1998. A personal message from Queen Elizabeth II to Sarah Ferguson, not of affection, but of permission. It allegedly granted her a limited and conditional right to use the York crest in specific philanthropic and personal ventures, provided they upheld the dignity of the crown. For decades, it remained hidden, a ghost of a deal that had long since been forgotten, or rather intentionally buried. After the divorce, the late Queen, though publicly distanced from Sarah, is said to have extended a rare courtesy in private. Her Majesty knew Sarah's circumstances, her vulnerabilities, her relentless drive to carve a life beyond the palace walls. According to the alleged document, This was a compromise, a quiet allowance that gave Sarah just enough symbolic identity to preserve her dignity without directly tethering her to the monarchy. But when the tide turned against Sarah in the early 2000s, that letter disappeared. Archived, sealed, and wiped from the formal record by aides who considered it no longer relevant. Now, with the Crest ban igniting public backlash, the letter has resurfaced. A whistleblower, former Palace Records assistant, has come forward, claiming the document still exists and was deliberately excluded from recent legal reviews. In private meetings, Sarah's legal team has begun referencing it, subtly warning of material evidence indicating prior consent. The palace, caught off guard, has scrambled into defense mode. Internal emails have reportedly gone out to senior archivists with urgent requests to locate and contain any communication bearing Crest usage clauses. But the intrigue doesn't end there. In a strange twist, Princess Beatrice is said to have accessed a rarely visited storage vault during her university years, one believed to house private correspondences from the Queen's personal estate. Whether she retrieved the letter then is still unconfirmed, but sources close to the family say she's remained unusually tight-lipped during the entire scandal, almost as if she's guarding something. Or someone. The fear within the palace has become palpable. With every passing hour, more questions surface. One senior aide was overheard saying, "It's not about the Crest anymore, it's about control." The stakes have escalated, not just in legal terms but in narrative ownership. Because if the document is real and Sarah was once given formal, if quiet, permission, then the recent ban wasn't just harsh, it was a breach of royal promise. And in a final blow of irony, rumours have begun swirling that Meghan Markle's inner circle via her close friendship with Eugenie may have been made aware of the letter. If true, it would mean a second royal outsider now holds a card that could devastate the palace's credibility. The threat of exposure isn't coming from one direction, it's coming from within, from those once considered harmless. With royal secrets unravelling and allegiances shifting, the question becomes not who banned Sarah, but who feared her return the most. This isn't just about Sarah anymore, it's about control, legacy, and the brutal branding war brewing inside the palace walls. As the monarchy fights to preserve its image in a new media age, casualties are inevitable, and Sarah may only be the first. Behind every headline, behind every orchestrated photo call and crisp press release, lies a battlefield. No one sees an internal war over what the monarchy represents in the 21st century. At the heart of it is an expanding divide, tradition versus transformation. And while Sarah Ferguson may appear to be an outlier, her public silencing is merely the opening shot in a far larger conflict. Sources deep inside palace operations confirm that Catherine, Princess of Wales, has taken on a far more assertive role in shaping the royal family's media and branding strategies. Gone are the days of reactive PR. What Catherine is building now is proactive, sharp-edged, and unapologetically curated. Her advisors call it a digital monarchy, designed to appeal to the next generation while maintaining ironclad control over narrative. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla's faction, rooted in old guard caution, has constructed what insiders are calling a monarchy image firewall, a strategic buffer to prevent any non-senior royal from leveraging their former ties to the crown for personal or commercial gain. Sarah's use of royal-adjacent imagery wasn't just inconvenient, it was viewed as a threat to that firewall. A breach. One that needed to be punished swiftly and publicly to deter others. And now, a precedent has been set. Within the walls of the firm, tension has reached a breaking point. William and Catherine represent the modernizers focused on sleek public messaging and youthful rebranding. Camilla and her allies stand for preservation, continuity, and strict boundaries. In the crosshairs are royals like Eugenie, Beatrice, and even Edward and Sophie, those who hover close to power but are not protected by its inner circle. The fear is clear, that the monarchy could fracture from the inside, as different camps pull the image of the crown in opposing directions. And looming over all of it is a deeper anxiety that the next generation, Charlotte, George, and Louis, will inherit a monarchy too damaged to command reverence. There is growing concern that media chaos today could lead to scandal tomorrow. That's why every photograph, every school appearance, every detail about the young heirs is tightly controlled. The last thing the palace wants is for their carefully staged legacy to be dragged through the mud by associations with disgraced or controversial figures. Yet the media refuses to play by royal rules. Every gesture, every silence, every absence is scrutinized and amplified. The removal of a crest isn't just a branding decision, it becomes a narrative of betrayal. A photograph without a title becomes a commentary on status. The firm can no longer keep pace with the speed at which stories spiral, mutate, and return to haunt them. And that's exactly where Sarah finds her power, not in reclaiming a title, but in controlling the story. Insiders hint that she's preparing to break her silence in a way that could shatter everything. A memoir is in development, with a working title whispered through literary circles. They wanted me silent. I'm not. If true, it would be a declaration of war, one written not with spite, but with a truth the palace has spent decades trying to suppress. Sarah doesn't want a title, she wants her story back. But as the fire rages, Sarah Ferguson isn't walking away quietly, and her next move may be the most shocking of all. Stripped of her crest, shunned from official circles, and humiliated on a global stage, Sarah Ferguson is preparing her final gambit. And according to sources, it's not a retreat, it's a reveal. A move that could finally force the royal family to reckon with its ghosts. While the palace remains silent, Sarah's team is anything but still. Behind closed doors, a calculated plan is being set into motion. Reports confirm that preparations are underway for a high-impact media appearance, either a press conference or a sit-down interview with global reach. But this isn't just about optics, it's about leverage. And if rumors are to be believed, Sarah holds far more than her story. Multiple insiders have whispered the same chilling phrase, "She has tapes." Audio recordings, allegedly captured during key meetings over the years, where members of the royal household discussed Crest usage, titles, and most damning of all, Sarah's role in shaping the post-divorce narrative. Legal advisors close to Sarah have begun quietly consulting external agencies specializing in intellectual property rights. If Sarah can prove she was granted informal or verbal permission to use the York identity in association with her brand, she could launch a public case that doesn't just challenge the recent ban, it could question the legitimacy of the palace's enforcement altogether. Already, there are rumblings of interest from human rights watchdogs, viewing the Crest controversy as part of a broader conversation about institutional silencing and brand ownership. Meanwhile, the publishing world is circling. At least 4 major houses are rumored to be bidding on exclusive rights to Sarah's next memoir, one that, according to early drafts, will include never-before-heard conversations, confidential documents, and her personal reflections on decades of public rejection. The working title remains under wraps, but the final chapter, according to someone familiar with the manuscript, carries the haunting line, "You can't exile what was never truly let in." That phrase alone has become a rallying cry online, an echo for anyone who's ever been erased while smiling for the cameras. The palace's response? An uneasy silence. But sources claim Prince William is furious about these developments. The idea that the monarchy's internal deliberations could be aired publicly, undermining not just the firm's authority but its future, has ignited fresh anxiety in royal circles. As Sarah prepares her final move, there's one truth the palace cannot deny. It may have underestimated her for the last time. The royal crest may be gone from her cards, but Sarah's signature move may leave a permanent mark on the monarchy itself. And what she reveals next could redraw the royal line forever. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.